A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. It is great to have you with us on the program here in just a couple of minutes. Kurt Schlichter, senior columnist at Townhall, will join us on the program talking about something that Kurt's actually been hitting pretty hard over the last couple of days, as we have seen the unrest and the protests and the toppling of statues and you may be seeing your blood pressure rise. You may be getting a little bit angrier by the day. Kurt has some fantastic advice on how to respond and on playing the long game, the tactical decisions and the strategy that must be used in order to most effectively combat what we are seeing here from those who would want to tear down and destroy this nation. Speaking of those who want to tear down and destroy this nation and those who want to fight back, the Trump campaign has a special offer just for you. President Trump wants to meet you. The first opportunity that the president has had to meet with American patriots like yourself since the country started reopening. So his team going to cover the flight, hotel, give you VIP access for yourself and a guest. President Trump will even take a picture with you as well. All you have to do is text ENGAGE to 88022 today for your chance to meet President Trump. Again, that is ENGAGE. ENGAGE to 88022 to enter to win this contest and join President Trump in the fight to keep America great for 4 more years. Paid for by Donald J. Trump for President Incorporated. So we did have the opportunity to speak with Kurt Schlichter, and it's been fascinating. I mean, I've been watching what's going on. I'm about an hour from Richmond, Virginia, where we have obviously seen a number of Confederate statues that have come down. Also, a statue of Christopher Columbus, I think, was taken down, and the Robert E. Lee statue has been sort of the centerpiece of the protests there in Richmond. Well, on Monday, Governor Ralph Northam issuing an order basically saying there's going to be a curfew at that Lee Memorial or that Lee Monument from dusk until dawn. Last night, police moved in around midnight to clear out the folks who were there. There was another encampment, an attempt at a Richmond-style Chaz that was set up right outside of City Hall in Richmond. That, too, was cleared out after just a couple of hours, city police coming in. So I think that America is getting fed up with this stuff. And even in these deep blue cities, you're starting to see, as we have with Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan, a response now that, okay, we can't let this continue. We can't let this keep going on. We've tried to be patient. We've called it the summer of love. We've tried it, but people are getting fed up. People on the right are getting fed up. People in the middle are getting fed up. People on the left are getting fed up with this chaos. Now, what's President Trump supposed to do about it? Well, again, in our conversation with Kurt Schlichter, maybe letting the locals handle this is the president's best response. Take a look and a listen. Kurt Schlichter, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. Just kicking it old school here in L.A.
Yeah, excellent. I'm glad to hear it. You've got a new book coming out, by the way. We should talk about that while we have you here. What, 2 weeks from now, right?
Yeah, let me pimp it like Dolomite. It is the 21 Biggest Lies About Donald Trump and You, and it's from Regnery, and everyone should pre-order it, or I'm going to pester them until they do.
Did I read correctly? This is already on its second printing, and it hasn't even come out yet?
You did read that correctly.
Dude, that's awesome. Congratulations. I mean, that is seriously very cool.
I'm very happy and gratified. And it's not a shitty book either. I mean, it's like fun. I don't know if I could say that on
I think you can. Why not? We'll we'll worry about that in post. Say what you want. Listen, I'm not here to silence you.
I don't have a post. I just do my things, and then they just come off. I don't have a post.
Well, you do this long enough, and you'll have a guy at some point who will handle all of the post production stuff for you.
A guy in the law field. Are you saying I need a pundit guy?
I think you need a pundit guy. Yeah, I think you should talk to the folks at Townhall about that. They can get you a pundit guy.
What about Guy? I'm a senior columnist. Where's my guy?
Well, okay, listen, we're going to talk about that off air because you've got some stuff that you actually had a great thread, and you've been talking about this a lot over the past couple of days. You know, it's very easy when you turn on the news or you get on social media and you start seeing the statues getting torn down, or you see Sean King saying, "Oh, we need to go after the churches now." Really easy to just feel that rage boil up inside of you, and you want to get out there and you want to, no, I'm going to stand in front of these statues. I'm going to, get into these people's faces. But you're offering, I think, some very valuable advice to people, and that is play the long game, calm down, and don't play the game that the left wants us to play, right?
Exactly. Look, a provocateur provokes. He makes you frustrated. He makes you feel powerless. He makes you feel like, the guys that you're backing are not doing anything. And sometimes it works. My phone is full of texts from conservative guys I party with who are like, Kurt, you're absolutely right. Trump's not doing anything. This is terrible. He needs to send in the army and stuff. And I'm like, okay, chill. Now, I'm not against a little stick time on these trust fund jerks. Okay, that's fine with me if I thought it was going to achieve my objective. And in fact, I'm one of the few guys around who's actually done it. I was on the streets in Los Angeles with the army when we violently suppressed the riots, which were widespread and killing people. These are concentrated attacks, and they're not killing people. They're targeting material. And this is important. Now, if you're watching this, I want you to do it. I'm in the middle of suburbs. I'm looking around, and I'm hearing birds chirp. There's somebody walking his dog over there. Unless you are overlooking Lafayette Park or overlooking Scumbagistan in Seattle, or maybe in a couple places in the premier areas of New York, America is perfectly at peace. Now, on social media, it's not. In the cancel culture, that's a different fight. Part of the same war, but a different campaign. But the simple fact is, what you see on TV is a lie. The entire world is not pulling down statues. It just isn't. But you're getting the impression that it is, which is what they want. Out of 330 million people, if 2 million of them actually marched in protest, I'd be stunned. And if 3,000 of those 330 million participated in the violence, I would think that that's probably about. So it's what we call an information operation. There's kinetic operations that basically take a stick and hitting somebody. And there's information operations where you compel them not through threat or through actually physically moving them, but you compel them to do what you want them to do by their own choice, by changing their perceptions. And that's what I think this is. We're supposed to be frustrated. We're supposed to be angry. We're supposed to think, why do we even bother voting for Trump if 500 people can suddenly materialize, throw a chain around Andrew Jackson, and then be pushed off by the Park Police?
See,
I think it's time to throw in the cards.
Yeah. And I was going to say, not only that, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, this is an attempt to demoralize voters, but I think it's also an attempt on some level to get conservatives to overreact. I saw a story out of Lake County, Illinois, yesterday, where over the weekend, some guy was driving by a war memorial. He saw 2 people there. He thought to himself, I bet they're there to smash stuff up. So he drives up, he gets out of his car, he unholsters his firearm and has it at the low ready position. Well, it turns out this was just a couple that were there because they were fighting and they wanted to go somewhere and have it out in private. They weren't there to destroy the memorial. Thankfully, they decided not to press charges against this guy. But, the media will pounce. Yes. Like they say, Republicans will pounce on any sort of overreaction on the part of conservatives here. They are looking for the right to behave badly, and they'll cover up any and they'll minimize anything that happens on the left, but they'll amplify anything that comes from the right.
Well, let's take a good example. You're absolutely right. A classic counterinsurgency classic insurgency technique is to basically manipulate the counterinsurgents into committing an atrocity, which drives more people to counter to the insurgents. That classic. That's done all the time. That is part of the toolbox. Let me ask you a question. Do you know the name? Do you have any idea of what happened in Chicago this weekend? About 10, 15 people got shot About 9 got killed, right? Do you have any idea their names or where they happened or any of that? Okay.
I do not.
Is there any incident 50 years ago, a half century ago, where the government killed 4 people that you can tell me in pretty good detail about?
Kent State?
Yeah. Yeah. Got it? If you need any more convincing, the fact that it's Kent State, Ohio National Guard opened fire and killed 4 students. Well, mission accomplished. The simple fact is we have to understand the enemy and what the enemy is doing. But the hardest part is strategic patience. And look, we are not a patient society. We're an action society. And you look at a guy like Donald Trump, and a lot of people have the expectation that this is a guy who wins by acting. I mean, he's often off the cuff, shoots from the hip. He seems to, but that's not entirely correct. This guy's a long-term thinker. This guy beat the entire establishment and became president, and he did it over. It took him almost a year and a half to do it. He understands. He understands there's no win. Let's look at I keep being told, well, we can't let these guys in these cities, these Democrat cities, pull down statutes. Let's ignore D.C. because it's got federal issues. Let's look at a state. Let's look at Minneapolis. How is Donald Trump physically going to tactically enforce law and order, which is a cop's job? It's a local cop's job. It's not happening because the local cops are not doing it. Keep in mind, what happened with that Jackson statue was less violence than your average NBA championship post-game activities. I mean, significantly less. And the cops handle that perfectly. Now, when you have local cops who are ordered not to do it, combined with the fact that they know if they go in and bust heads, they'll get caught on camera and they will get zero support, and that may be their job, may be their financial future, maybe even be their freedom. They're not going to be super excited to do it. And then you have local DAs not flying top cover for the leftists, not charging them. Say we send in a bunch of federal officers into Seattle, right? You might get a few guys who cross state lines to cause a riot. The rest are state charges. How does the federal government force a local DA who George Soros bought to conduct the prosecute the case from arrest through trial if they don't want to? Hey, we brought in 20 of these scumbags. Fine, we're releasing them. And you can't hold them because they didn't commit a federal crime. Mm-hmm. Now, that is one power Trump does have. He does have the power to use the federal government. They seem to be doing it. I wish they'd publicize it more because it's an information operation. You have to put out your own. I would like to see, every day, here are the 20 trust fund jerks, college kids who aren't going back to Princeton because they're looking at 5 years in Leavenworth because they crossed state lines to destroy government property, which is a federal crime. Remember, there's 3 types of Antifa types. There are the hardcore communist cadre. That's the smallest. There are regular criminals. You look at some of these guys that they arrest, and they're like meth heads. These guys, if they were Nazis or Shriners, they would be, but they got the chance to do violence. They put on a fez and go burn shit. So some are criminal. A lot of them are posers. They're young people who think, well, I'm going to do this. Maybe I'll get arrested, but I'm just going to get a $50 ticket, and I'll be back out tomorrow with some street cred. You always see like Jane Fonda gets arrested every week. Mm-hmm. If she got arrested, and they said, okay, well, you crossed state lines to a riot. That's 5 years, and we're going to prosecute you. She wouldn't be out there the next week. Okay, and no one else would either. And people need to see that. So that is a power that we have. One thing, I keep hearing, Trump needs to come out and say X, Y, Z. Trump does not need to say anything he's not going to do and not capable of doing. He needs to continue to promote law and order, and he continues to leave this on the people who caused it, like the Democrat mayor. They're closing down the Seattle Autonomous Zone. We've seen 2 killings there. Now the mayor is closing it down, and she's going to get the grunge on her hands. And Trump will say, finally, my pressure worked.
Yeah, no, we're seeing this. We're seeing this in Richmond too. Actually, Monday night there were attempts to set up a Richmond version of Chaz right outside of City Hall, and the Democrat mayor LeVar Stoney, I guess, gave the green light for police to move in and break that up shortly after midnight. There also were police breaking up the protests outside of the statue of Robert E. Lee in Richmond, which is, I guess, run by the state. So that's now on Ralph Northam, and you're right. You're now seeing that it's gone from a left versus right fight to now it's an intra-left fight, because now you've got the Antifa types, complaining about the Democrat mayors and the Democrat governors, and they're angry at those folks now instead of Donald Trump.
Exactly. Look, I have been people said, critique Kurt. You're trying to make lemons out. You're trying to take lemons and make lemonade. To which I plead absolutely guilty. The enemy is trying to put us in a position where all our choices are subpar and suboptimal. That's what enemies do. Like I said, enemies get a vote, and they attempt to put you in a place where all your decisions are bad, much like you and I have just been talking about doing to them. So yes, we're going to have to respond, and it's going to require patience, and it's going to require that we not be frustrated and angry, but we become cold and ruthless. We need to understand it's going to take a while. It's not tomorrow. We're not going to win tomorrow. The Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Hiroshima wasn't the next morning. But it did come. And this will come. The enemy is trying to give a impression of inevitability and being undefeatable. But it's neither. It's got a glass jaw. We can turn it around. I think we're starting to. I think they could do a better job. I'm certainly here to advise if anyone wants to ask. After all, the federal government trained me how to do this stuff.
Well, listen, I hope that you get that call very soon. But in the meantime, I'm glad that you could spend some time with us today. It is always good catching up with you. Hopefully we get a chance to do this in person. Is there going to be a book tour? Do you know?
I think it will be virtual, my man. You mean a book tour for this? The 21 biggest lies about Donald Trump and you, which is actually a very funny book.
I'm looking forward to it, man. I appreciate you coming on the program.
I think I think you're in my acknowledgments too.
Really? Wow. Yeah. All right. Well, I might have to pre-order a second copy now just for that.
I'm actually sending you a copy from the office.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Hey, listen, I do appreciate you coming on the program. We got to start to wrap things up, but I know we'll be talking again very soon. And by the way, as long as we're talking here, don't forget VIP Gold members for Townhall Media. You get the opportunity to interact with Kurt during live chats, regular basis. You've been doing it with Larry O'Connor. I'm going to crash one of those before long.
Oh yeah, that'll be
okay. We'll make that.
A little blue. It gets a little blue.
Listen, I can work blue. I don't normally do it on Cam and Company, but I'd be happy to work blue with you.
Well, you've been present when I've discussed in detail the Bulwark Weekly Standard proclivities list. You've seen me do it with Ace of Spades.
I still have my little hat from from a certain party in Washington, D.C. But we'll talk about that off air. Kurt Schlichter, senior columnist at Townhall. Thank you as always, my friend. It's great talking to you today. There you go. Appreciate Kurt joining us on the program. It's always good talking with him. I could do this for 3 hours or more with Kurt Schlichter. I never get tired of talking to that guy. Coming up, we've got our good deed of the day. We have our armed citizen story. We have our recidivist report. But the Trump campaign has a special offer just for you. President Trump wants to meet you. It's going to be his first opportunity that he's had to meet with American patriots like yourself since the country has started reopening. So his team ready to cover the flight, hotel, give you VIP access for you and a guest. President Trump will even take a picture with you as well. All you have to do is text ENGAGE to 88022 today for your chance to meet President Trump. Again, that's ENGAGE to 88022 to enter to win this contest and to join President Trump in the fight to keep America great for 4 more years. Paid for by Donald J. Trump for President, Incorporated. So let's get to today's, we'll start with our recidivist report. I got to tell you, this one is troubling in many regards. And, it's interesting. I ran across a story last night. I think Phil Labani from All That Remains had shared this story of a guy down, I think this was in Florida. Guy who got a 4-year prison sentence for stealing a couple of power cords from a Best Buy. Right. And he said, this is shocking. This is ridiculous. And you know what? It is 4 years for stealing, petty theft, basically. I mean, that is ridiculous. But what is equally crazy to me is that for every one of these stories where somebody gets put in prison for a number of years for a nonviolent offense, I can show you 3 or 4 stories where somebody walks away after committing a violent offense and doesn't go to prison at all. So I'm all in favor of talking about, reforming our criminal justice system to ensure that sentences are more equitable, but it's a two-way street. Not only do we have to talk about guys going to prison for years for stealing a power cable, we've got to talk about cases like this one out of Wisconsin, where a Partyville man arrested in February on felony strangulation, false imprisonment, and bail jumping charges, recently sentenced after pleading no contest to one of the 5 charges that he was originally facing. 38-year-old Jeremiah Mencius was found guilty of felony strangulation and suffocation, and he was ordered to undergo 36 months of probation. Yep. By Sauk County Circuit Court Judge Patricia Barrett during a sentencing hearing June 10th via video conferencing. Felony charges of bail jumping, false imprisonment, and misdemeanor counts of disorderly conduct and battery were dismissed, but, quote, read in, which means that they can be considered during sentencing if Mencius returns to court as a consequence of violating the terms of his probation. Could be, may not be. Right now, though, they're just completely disregarded. According to the criminal complaint, Sauk County Sheriff's deputies were called out to the hotel at the Ho-Chunk Casino near Wisconsin Dells back on February 29th by a woman who was crying while speaking to dispatch workers. They could hear a man yelling in the background. Deputies arrived. They spoke to Mencius that evening. He said the woman had been drinking and had repeatedly hit him, which prompted him to hold her down to keep her from striking him. The woman, on the other hand, told officers that Mencius had been drinking, that a discussion turned physically violent when he became upset, pinned her to in a corner. She tried to push him away. He then pushed her down on a couch, pushed her to the floor. Her head struck a coffee table before Mencius began strangling her, squeezing her so hard that she could not make any noise, according to what she told deputies. WisconsinNews.com says eventually she was able to get away. She knocked on doors looking for help. There's surveillance video showing her trying to re-enter the building through a glass door to avoid Mencius, but that door was locked. She went back to the room because she was only partially clothed, and that is when Mencius allegedly strangled the woman again, punching her multiple times. The deputy noticed a golf ball-sized lump on the back of the woman's head as he was talking to her. Once the woman was dressed, she left the room again, but Mencius can be seen in surveillance video running behind her. She was trying to make a call and get on an elevator. 2 bystanders exited a room and watched the argument, interrupting the yelling at some point. The 2 men then told deputies that they were trying to help calm down the situation. Mencius had been facing a maximum of 19 years in prison. 19 years in prison was what he could have received. Instead, he walked away with 36 months of probation. And by the way, he's set to be sentenced in November of this year for a separate case after pleading no contest to a disorderly conduct charge back in October. So again, I'm all in favor of having this discussion about criminal justice reform. But we've got to talk about both the overcriminalization that takes place in this country and sentences like this, which occur in large part because 97% of felony cases in this country end up getting plea bargained. And people like Mr. Mencius get returned to the streets instead of spending any time at all behind bars. All right, on to our armed citizen story of the day. This one's kind of a rough one, too, I got to say. From Lore City, Ohio, the Daily Jeffersonian newspaper, where a armed citizen ended up having to shoot a dog that was attacking an 11-year-old girl at a home there in Lore City. I'm not one who believes that, pit bulls should be banned or we got to, prevent people from owning Rottweilers. I don't believe that there's a breed of dog that is inherently dangerous. Let me just get that out there right now, because Sometimes people get angry when you start talking about stuff like this. This was a Rottweiler. Apparently, the Rottweiler had broken its chain, ran across a driveway, and then attacked this 11-year-old girl who was outside. According to the Daily Jeffersonian, with the dog biting the girl's leg, the owner tried to get it off of her and then tried to choke out the dog to stop the attack. That was unsuccessful. The owner then yelled for his neighbor, who ran outside, hearing the screams of the girl and yelling at others. He had his firearm, .38 caliber handgun. He ended up shooting the dog as it continued biting the girl. The owner of the dog suffered injuries in multiple locations, including an injury on a finger that was believed to actually be from the gunshot. He later told deputies that the injury was not from a gunshot. The Rottweiler was, current on vaccinations. I mean, this is a sad story. Thankfully, that armed neighbor was there to prevent that attack from going any further. I'm sorry that the dog lost his life. I'm sorry that the dog attacked that little girl, but I am very, very grateful that things were not any worse than they were there in Lower City, Ohio. Finally today, our good deed of the day from Astoria, Oregon, where an officer saved a baby from a fire over the weekend, and police didn't even really know about this apparently until Monday morning. Fox 12 in Oregon says there was a smoke coming from a home, stopped Christine Lawler on her way to the store Friday morning. She pulled over to help. Bicyclist had already alerted the family that was inside. She started hearing the mom's voice outside. Christine Lawler says, I think she was in shock, and she said, oh my gosh, my baby is still inside in the swing. Yeah, that's when Christine Lawler said, I just started running for the door with every intention to go in and look for the baby. And I opened the door, I put my hoodie over my nose and was ready to go in, and out he comes. He, meaning Officer Jason Robinson, who had arrived on scene ahead of the fire department, ran into the smoke, came out with the baby in his arms. Astoria Police Chief Jeff Spaulding says in all likelihood, at the bare minimum, he prevented that small child from suffering additional smoke inhalation, not to mention the possibility of saving a life. So I think that his actions are very commendable and heroic at the same time. The chief says Robinson documented the event in the police report, but beyond that, didn't say anything. The chief, in fact, only found out about it because Lawler sent the department an email. She said, quote, I felt it needed to be known. It was just a reminder of, even though there's a lot of tragedy, especially these days, selfless acts still do occur, and people still service the community, especially the law enforcement team. Officer Robinson probably won't think he deserves any of this, but he really does. And all of law enforcement and fire definitely deserve recognition that they still put their life on the line every single day. So the fire department, thankfully, able to knock out the fire within about 10 minutes. Looks like the fire was started accidentally. The home did not have any working smoke detectors. The family is okay. Everybody was taken to the hospital and checked out. Baby is fine. And again, in the right place at the right time and willing to do the right thing there in Astoria, Oregon. Got to thank Officer Jason Robinson for his very, very good deed. That is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. I want to thank you for being a part of the program today. We will be back tomorrow with more of the latest Second Amendment news and information. But until we talk again, don't forget, you can subscribe to Townhall Media on YouTube. That way you never miss a program. Or Bearing Arms Cam and Company on the Apple Podcast platform or any of the other fine podcast platforms. And you could also become a VIP Gold member of BearingArms.com and a VIP Gold member of Townhall Media. That way you get exclusive analysis, commentary, those VIP live chats we're talking about with Kurt Schlichter. Maybe you'll even get to hear me work blue. You never know. I'm going to be doing one with Ed Morrissey today. You can find the replay of that if you are a VIP Gold member. And until we talk again, be safe, be well, be free. We'll see you soon with another Bearing Arms Cam and Company.